So, Dr. Calum Fraser, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And I think you have one of the most amazing job titles ever. It's Master Blender for Scotch and Irish Whisky at Suntory. That's quite a role. How did you get to where you are today? What was your journey?
You're right. It's a real privilege to be the Master Blender for Scotch and Irish for Suntory Global Spirits, working with globally renowned brands, and as somebody who's Scottish, being associated with Scotch whiskies, fantastic. For me, it is truly the best job ever. In terms of how I got here, probably there isn't a degree as such to become a master blender or indeed a blender. So my roots are very much around science. So I was a chemist by trade, initially doing forensic and analytical chemistry at University in Glasgow. So a bit like CSI type thing.
One of my favourite shows.
And then I moved into a different discipline, synthetic organic chemistry, so a bit more Breaking Bad type thing, so white coat pharmaceutical type chemist. So how that linked to whiskey, very much around the softer skills, problem solving, seeing challenges, overcoming them, being very analytical, and working through problems to succeed. And working in a chemistry lab, you're exposed to lots of aromas, perhaps not as nice as the whiskies I now work with, but lots of aromas, and during that subconsciously I was picking up at very small levels, as it turned out, different aromas and flavours, which when I then applied to work in the world of whiskey, I found that I actually had a good way of picking up flavours and articulating that. That was about 2011, so about 14 years ago, that I entered the world of whiskey, and then worked over the past 14 years with some fantastic mentors, some fantastic master blenders across the Scotch whisky industry that have helped hone my craft to where I am today. And it's just amazing.
And I think that's it, isn't it? It's that craft, that tradition. I talked to Shinji about the idea of craftsmanship and the idea of tradition and how important it is as well, along with modernity. And you talking about learning from some of the best in the business, and that knowledge being kind of taken through. How important for you is tradition when it comes to Scotch whisky?
Oh, this tradition is absolutely the crux of our industry. If I look at the distilleries that I work with, like Bamore and Glengarry, we're going back to the 1700s, and our youngest distilleries, Ardmore, is 1898 that began producing. So we are dealing with centuries of tradition and legacy, and I'm following on from fantastically talented men and women who have really brought the whiskey to where I am today, and I've just got to make sure I carry on that legacy.
And I think that's a really good point. I was saying to Shinji, it's amazing that what you're making now, or what you're putting into barrels now, you may not see the results of, in your lifetime. And I think it's that sense of pride of being able to pass the baton on to the next generation, and to have those building blocks in place so that when the next sort of master blender takes over, they have the right tools, and that must be so important for you on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said at the start, I've got the best job in the world, and it is loads of fun. I go into my work every day with a smile, but I do know that there's a great deal of responsibility, because as you say, the decisions we are making now, the flavour profile of our new mate distillate, the cask types that we procure, that will have a knock-on impact for 12 years, 30 years, 50 years time, and as you say, I may not be around to see that, so I need to make sure, like my predecessors have done for me, that I leave the house in good order for the next generation to carry on.
And I think that's incredible. And I think one of the things that I only just really found out was the work and the money that Beam Suntory is putting back into those distilleries to bring back some of that heritage that, over the years we know whiskey changes and it develops, and it could be market, it could be technique, science, whatever. And one of the most exciting things, I think, is Glengarry.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about what you've been doing at Glengarry to kind of bring back some of the history and tradition, but still keep it modern and
Absolutely, relevant? Yeah. No, I mean, Glengarry is a real jewel within our portfolio, I've got to say. It maybe doesn't get the
love
and the awareness that are at Isla siblings do at Lafroig and Bamore, but in terms of the new make distillate that we have always produced, but particularly now with all the changes, it's a fantastically complex, robust whiskey in the making. But in terms of what we've done and invested, because quality is absolutely the forefront for us, it's absolutely the priority. So we have invested a significant amount to bring back in the floor maltings operation, which is amazing. Set up the mash tun so that we can bring clear wort into the process. Invested in washbacks to allow for longer fermentation times, and also re-engineered, and I've never heard of this before, re-engineering back in direct fire distillation in our wash still.
That is insane.
Which is amazing.
That must have been quite a moment when you fired up the stills for the first time, and all of you must have been like...
I know. Yeah, I mean, for me in my career, I've never worked with a distillery because there's so few that have direct fire distillation within its setup. Yep. So having that as part of my armoury is amazing, and it's amazing to see the difference that as well as all the other parts that I mentioned previously, when you bring those all together, the complexity and the essence of the new make spirit has just really been enhanced by all these expensive but small changes. All these tweaks have made a huge difference. So I'm really excited by what we're seeing as a young maturing whiskey, what we'll hopefully be able to showcase over the coming years to the wider.
Very excited. And if we break that down, what do you think, if I take each sort of step and each change you've made, if you look at floor maltings, what do you think that's giving to the final distillate?
So I think all aspects for me will allow for overall complexity to be brought in, but I think for the floor malting, it's what I like about the floor malt, the way I kind of picture it is you consistently get some inconsistencies in the modification of the barley as it turns into malt. So some's under modified, some's over modified. So that variation in the modification of the malt will play a part in terms of the flavours that come through in the new make distillate.
That's so interesting, because you don't think about that, but actually inconsistency creates complexity. And I guess also having a clear wort, that's giving you what to the spirit? Yeah,
so for me, if the wort combined with the minimum 72-hour fermentation, if I can combine those two, for me that gives further clarity to the new make distillate, and it opens up more of the fruity characters to come through in particular. Typically, if you get cloudier wort, it maybe tends to more cereal dominating, whereas what we've envisaged is using clear wort, longer fermentation, and really allow the fruitiness to evolve during both those processes.
And for me, the fact that you've increased fermentation, so many distilleries over the last sort of few years, and I get it, because got to get more liquid in stills, and of course the money people are sort of knocking on the door. That longer fermentation, and I'm obsessed about fermentation, so I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Just gives so much more, and I think it's really amazing that you guys have invested in that time, because it is investing in time.
Absolutely.
I think people don't think about it like that. They're like, what's the difference between 48 and 20 and 77? There's a big difference, because it's time and it has knock-on effects, and I think that's really commendable to invest in that time to give the spirit, as you say, this beautiful character. And I guess with direct fire, it's the weight,
absolutely,
the body and the spirit.
Yeah, and because it's the direct heat on the stills, it allows for further reactions like the Maillard reaction. So it really, again, I use the word complexity, but it's another layer in terms of the flavour, and as you say, the body really gets supported by carrying out that direct fire distillation. So when I compare a very good distillate that we had about 10 years ago, the new make distillate was getting produced, to today, it's amazing. It's it's transformed a very good whiskey, and over the next coming years, hopefully we can showcase exceptional whiskies from Glengarry.
I'm beyond excited, because also Bamore, which I think everyone has in their heart. I think Bamore is any whiskey lover who loves anything that's got these wonderful tropical fruits loves Bamore, and especially old Bamore. The 60s is kind of like the hallowed grounds of whiskey. And you've also invested in Bamore.
Yes.
And I had the immense pleasure, and it was an immense pleasure, of tasting the Fate bottling this year.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, tropical fruits. What have you done to bring that kind of back into Bamore? And I'm a massive fan of Bamore 15, and I think it's always had that. But this was on steroids. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sitting here and I've got the pleasure of sitting here, but a lot of the hard work has been done by our distillery team. So David Turner and his team at the distillery, it's a team effort, but they have played a huge part in this. But yeah, this year's fresh bottling was a single cask Oloroso sherry, but matured Bowmore that was actually only put into cask in 2016, so it was only actually an 8-year-old.
I mean, it did not taste like an 8-year-old.
Exactly. So at the forefront of this was the ability to use 100% floor malted in the mash bill. So that's all the peat that's been used to dry the malt has come from Islay. So you get that rich medicinal character in there, and then that peat's been used to dry the malt in the floor maltings to about 20-25 parts per million in phenols. So you've got that complexity I talked about from using the floor maltings. It really does give layers of flavour right at the start of the process, and that very much through the various parts of the distillery process. Again, long fermentation, etc., right through to the new make distillate. I gave a Bowmore that was just more layered than our normal new make distillate.
And it really is incredible. I think just to taste it and just to get that kind of that fruit bomb.
Yeah.
And I think what the team have also done with the sherry cask ones, I remember just tasting it as we launched them this time last year, and I just remember tasting the 15 and the 18 going, oh my goodness. And I think Bowmore has, and that's why people love Bowmore, it's got that really wonderful core of fruit, and it's amazing that floor malting is just enhancing that.
Yeah, it just gives it a weight so that it can stand up to the power of a sherry cask maturation, because that's in itself quite a rich, sweet, weighty, maturation style. And Bowmore, we did use the tagline, it ages like no other, but it's true.
Yep.
It works really well in bourbon, the more delicate side of bourbon, but also in a weightier maturation environment of a sherry cask or a wine cask. It works, and you get all that complexity and layered flavour.
And honestly, if anyone gets hold of that fish bottling, I'm here. Laphroaig. So I think Laphroaig is the complete other end of the spectrum. And I think it's a Marmite whiskey. People love it, or they're like, what is this? And it's that medicinal character for me that really, like, you put your nose into it and you're like, even like the older styles, you get that medicinal note. Where is that coming from? And like, how different is it to make Laphroaig, and why is it Laphroaig, basically?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate within our portfolio of our 5 distilleries that we have 3 that have a peaty element, and it's, you've almost, how I see it, is a lighter peaty style at Ardmore on the mainland. You've got the kind of more medium peated level at Bowmore, which then develops all fruity characters, floral characters, as you said, in line with the more delicate peat. And then you've got the bold,
the beast.
Yes, absolutely unmistakable, unapologetically peated character of Laphroaig. So again, talked about my job being the best in the world, the variety I get, that's just one example. But in terms of what makes Laphroaig, it very much starts at the raw material part of the process. So extensively within our mash bill, the malt that's used has been dried with Islay peat. So again, the provenance of where the peatlands are is very much critical. A mainland peatland or peat bog very much gives different characters when it's smouldering versus an Islay peat bog. So the fact that we have access to the fantastic peat bogs on Islay very much drives that rich, medicinal, earthy type phenol character, which we then utilise. George Campbell and his team do a great job again. We carry out a cold smoking process to really ham up, amplify up the phenol characters to up to 70 parts per million in the main, which the cold smoking process allows that absorption onto the wet malting barley before the drying process to bring it down to the level that we can then mill. So that very much that high phenol, high smoky, rich character starts at that point, and then during the process, George and the team make sure they try and, well, they retain that phenol characters through carrying out a semi-clear wort pull out like one. If we did a clear wort like we do at Glengarry, that would strip out a lot of that phenolic peaty character, like having that semi-cloudy wort that helps retain as much of that phenol character to then, after distillation, be present in the new make distillate.
And I think for me, Lefroy, I think in certain distilleries there's certain oak types that just work. And I love peat and sherry. I think it's just such a fantastic combination. And again, Lefroy takes those sherry casks
Absolutely.
so well. And that is that part of that kind of cooler sort of malting and getting a little bit more weight to the spirit as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, Lefroy, we typically, when I was thinking about our range, we typically match Lefroy up with bourbon barrel maturation, but we do, as you say, we've got expressions like Lefroy 10-year-old sherry cask, which is phenomenal, and Lefroy PX as well. So again, a different sherry seasoning to the cask as well, and it's like two powerful forces colliding, but it works, and then they interact with each other as well, and just give something with lots of depth and a huge unforgettable experience when you nose it and taste it.
So I was in Lefroy and actually Bamore about a month ago, and I've decided that my favourite Lefroy is anything over 30 years old in sherry. I can't afford that, but just aged Lefroy just has this complexity and it's wonderful. It's almost like that smoke just kind of rounds out and gives a kind of different dimension as it ages. Honestly, fantastic. Big fan.
Yeah. I do like once you go beyond 25 and 30, as you say, the peat doesn't reduce by any means, but I think the other complexities that people maybe don't think about for Lefroy, because everyone talks about the phenols, the smoke, the peat, but there's lots of complexities underneath, and as it ages, those other factors catch up, in particular the fruitiness for me starts to pick up. So when you get to 30 and beyond, you can quite, if you're used to drinking, the Lefroy 10-year-old or whatever, you maybe don't appreciate it's a Lefroy until you really delve into it and have a couple of sips, and the fruitiness that comes through as you get to older Lefroy's is, it's amazing. It's amazing to see it evolve. Incredible.
And I think something that's really important right now in the Scotch industry, and the Scotch industry is doing amazing steps, is sustainability.
Yeah.
How important, how central is that as a tenet for what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so we want to delight our consumers, whether it be in the UK, whether it be in the Far East, etc., with phenomenal whiskies, but we do realise that we have a responsibility in terms of our processes to make sure that we are minimising our impact on the environment, because obviously, if I take distilling in particular, it's a very energy-driven process to make a new made distillate. So within our wider business, we very much adhere to our proof positive philosophy within our operations. So a couple of examples we obviously have Ardmore, Bamore, and Lefroy as part of our portfolio, which are peated whiskies. So therefore, to make that peated whisky, we need peat to do that. So we have committed by 2040 to not only replace and regenerate peatlands, not only to replace what we've taken, we're actually going to put double what we've taken as well. So it's about 2,600 hectares, of which currently we've invested about $4 million. So that's basically regenerating, restoring peatlands across Scotland, basically to give back what we've taken. But peat is actually the most efficient carbon sponge there is.
Yes.
So by taking that, you're very much affecting the environment. So that's part of the reason for us looking to restore that. As part of our our
sustainability.
Yeah.
And someone told me it's how also you cut the peat, that if you cut it in a certain way, you don't allow a bit underneath to die, then actually it is much better. I know you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic to hear things like that, because, as you say, sustainability has to be a big part of what we do. So, one of my last questions, because I do have a bonus bowl question. For you, what have been some of your favourite whiskies that you've worked on over the years?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to work, again, across the portfolio. Different challenges, different flavour profiles, different ages of spirit. But I guess a few examples recently. I think within the Lefroy family, if I can talk about a range, the Elements range was a real amazing set of whiskies to work on. That was very much about looking at the distillery processes. Number one was looking at the wort clarity, the introduction of floor maltings, amongst other things. elements too. Was looking at the different fermentation length of times and blending those different times from different batches together, again to give a different take on the Croix signature style. And then elements 3 was looking at the malting process, where there was basically an over roasting of the malt. I think it's the best way to say it, at the distillery as well. So we got further interesting burnt notes,
Yes.
as well as the usual Lafroy complexity. So working on that was amazing. More the sherry range that you talked about recently, that was just a treat. If I had to name one, probably the 21-year-old PX finish, Pedro Jimenez cast finish, just really sweet working with the Bamor layers of flavour. And the last one, most recently, was being able to work very closely with Shinji on Ardrey.
Amazing.
A blended Scottish whisky, which it's not a single malt, so we're able to work with grain whiskies, malt whiskies of different style from different parts of Scotland, and seeing the mindset of the Japanese blenders interacting with our own mindset in Scotland is amazing. So for me, being a master blender, I'm not done. I've still got lots to learn, and been able, again, I've had some mentors that I've learned off in the past, and been able to work alongside an industry legend like Shinji's. But it was a real honour, and one hopefully we can do again.
Absolutely, and I think that's what's so great about the whole portfolio actually of Suntory Beam, is that you have these incredible distilleries. A massive fan of Make It Mark, massive fan of Suntory, massive fan of what you guys are doing in Scotland, and also you're Irish, not so bad either.
No.
And for you, what's the future of Scotch whisky? What do you think's important, and what do you think you see as the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we always have to stay true to our roots and our tradition. We do have reasonably tight regulations within how we produce, so I wouldn't want us to vary too much from that. I think that's part of what makes Scotch renowned worldwide. So I think for me, it's making sure that through our investment and our processes, such as Glengarry that we talked about, that we absolutely make sure that we are the best whisky of the world going forward, but very much steeped in tradition.
And I think for me, like tasting the new Bamores, tasting through some of the older Lafroigs, and I'm very excited to see what Glengarry comes. I think you've got an amazing, bright future, and I think it's fantastic to see the industry and what you guys are doing, giving back to the industry through bringing back some of those amazing traditions and those quality pillars that I think are fantastic, and what makes what you guys are doing so special. But thank you so much for your time today. It has been an absolute honour talking to you, and I now just want to taste a lot of Glengarry.
Great. Oh, good stuff. We'll need to have you at the distillery.
Oh yes, please.
Share that last year. But thank you for your time as well.
No, thank you.